You're restless right now and you can't explain why. Nothing is actually wrong. Things are maybe even going okay. But there's this low-level tension in your body that just won't settle. That feeling has a reason. So here's what's happening. Yesterday, something clarified. A direction, a sense that things are real. But the part of you that wants to act on it doesn't have the fuel yet. It's like the green light came on, but the car isn't ready. The sun wants to move forward. Jupiter keeps asking, but are you sure though? Do you really have everything you need? That gap between wanting to go and not quite being able to, that's the feeling. Here's the thing though. This restlessness isn't a sign something's wrong. It's what it feels like when something is about to start. And what's actually worth understanding is that this tension doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from being bigger than where you currently are before the movement catches up. That gap closes in a few days. This weekend is the last stretch before it does. So let's just sit with the actual feeling for a second, because it's a specific kind of uncomfortable. It's not anxiety exactly. Anxiety has an object, something you're worried about, something that might go wrong. This isn't that. Things are actually fine, maybe even more fine than they were a week ago, and yet you can't settle. You keep almost reaching for your phone. You start something and then set it down. There's a low hum of I should be doing something that won't quit, except you don't know what the something is. That's the part that's annoying, because you can work with a problem, you can work with a worry, but this vague electric current that has no obvious source. There's nothing to grab onto, so it just sits there. And here's what usually happens with this feeling. You start looking inward for what's wrong with you. You're too in your head. You need to get outside. You need to stop overthinking. You run through the list of potential reasons, and none of them quite fit. Because the actual reason isn't in the list of things you're looking at. It's in what happened yesterday and what hasn't happened yet. Yesterday, if you felt it, something quietly shifted. Not dramatic, just a sense that a direction you've been uncertain about is actually real, that the thing you've been working toward has weight behind it. That small shift was real. But here's the problem. When you can suddenly see where you're going, the fact that you're not moving yet becomes much harder to ignore. The direction arrived. The drive hasn't. And tonight that gap hits its peak. So why now? Why did yesterday feel like a shift? And why did that shift make today harder instead of easier? Here's the honest answer to that. Yesterday, 3 planets lined up in a way that hadn't happened all year. The Moon, Jupiter, and Mercury, all in water signs, all in a clean, supportive angle to each other. And what that formation did specifically is deliver confirmation, not create something new, confirm what was already there. The direction you've been sitting with since the winter, the work thing, the money thing, whatever it is for you, got a signal yesterday that said, this is real, this has weight, you're not imagining it. And that's genuinely good. That's what you'd been waiting on. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. The planet that delivers confirmation is not the planet that delivers drive. Those are 2 separate things. Jupiter confirmed the direction yesterday, but Mars, the planet that actually gives you executing power, the one that takes a clear direction and turns it into real movement, Mars is still in Pisces right now. And Pisces is the worst place for Mars to be if you want clean forward action. Energy in Pisces disperses. It circulates. It almost becomes motion and then doesn't quite get there. So yesterday you got the green light. But the engine isn't ready yet. And that specific combination, clarity without the capacity to act on it, is a physically uncomfortable state to be in. It's not confusion. It's not fear. It's the very particular feeling of knowing where you're going and not being able to start. Like standing at a door that's open and your feet won't move. That's what's in your body today. The good news is this is temporary and it has a specific endpoint. In a few days, Mars moves into Aries, its own sign where it operates at full strength. The dispersed, circling energy that Mars has right now suddenly has form and direction. The same person, the same situation, the same direction, but with actual fuel behind it. Between now and then is this weekend, and tonight that gap between the green light and the engine reaches its sharpest point. Not because something goes wrong, but because the specific planetary tension tonight brings that feeling to a head before it starts to release. To understand why tonight specifically, you need to see exactly what's happening in the sky right now, and why this particular configuration is the mechanical source of everything you've been feeling since yesterday. So here's what's actually happening tonight, and why it's the peak of what you've been feeling all day. The sun is in Aries right now. Aries is a forward-moving sign. It doesn't sit still, it doesn't wait, it pushes. The sun in Aries wants action, wants progress, wants to take what's clear and do something with it. Jupiter is in Cancer. Cancer is a different kind of energy entirely. It's careful, it's protective, it asks questions before it moves. And in Cancer, Jupiter doesn't just expand things, it expands the questions. Are you ready? Do you have what you need? Is the foundation solid? Is this the right moment? Not because something is wrong, just because that's what Jupiter in Cancer does. It wants to make sure everything is in place before it signs off. Tonight, those two face each other in a square. A square is exactly what it sounds like. Two planets pulling in different directions, creating friction between them. Not destruction, just tension. And the tension between Sun in Aries and Jupiter in Cancer is specifically this. One is pushing to go, the other is asking if you're actually ready to go. Late tonight, that square hits its exact point. And here's why you've been feeling it building all day. This kind of aspect doesn't arrive suddenly. It approaches. The whole day leading up to exact, your body is inside that friction. The push-pull between I need to move and but am I ready has been running in the background since yesterday evening. Every hour that passes today, it gets a little sharper. Tonight it peaks. After that, it starts to separate. The tension begins releasing, slowly. There's also something happening early this evening that pushes it further before it breaks. The moon moves into Sagittarius, a fire sign, restless and expansive by nature. When that happens, the I need to move side of the equation gets a second wind right before the peak. So the few hours between the moon changing signs and the square going exact tonight are probably the most uncomfortable stretch of the whole weekend. Not dangerous, just tight. After exact, it releases. Not all at once, but the sharpest edge of the weekend passes tonight. The question that's been underneath all of this, do you really have everything you need? That's what Jupiter is actually asking. And the reason it matters is that the answer to that question shapes what tomorrow looks like. Because tomorrow has a completely different quality to it than today, and it gives a specific type of response to the tension tonight created. Here's the part that usually gets missed about this kind of tension. Most people feel this state, the restlessness, the I need to move but can't, and they read it as something being wrong with them. Too anxious, too impatient, not trusting the process. They try to calm it down, breathe through it, talk themselves out of it. But that's not what this is. The hook puts it exactly right. This tension doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from being bigger than where you currently are before the movement catches up. Think about what that actually means. Sun square Jupiter doesn't create this kind of friction in people who aren't going anywhere. If you had no direction, no sense of what's ahead, no clarity about where things are pointing, you wouldn't feel this. You'd feel something else. Flat, disconnected, empty. That specific low-level electric tension that won't let you settle is only possible when there's somewhere to go, when the direction is real, when the gap between where you are and where you're heading is visible enough to feel. The restlessness is evidence of the direction, not a problem to solve. And here's the second thing. Jupiter in Cancer, asking, do you really have everything you need? That question sounds like hesitation. It sounds like doubt, but it isn't. It's a practical inventory. Because Jupiter in Cancer isn't trying to stop the movement, it's trying to make sure the movement is real when it happens. Not rushed, not half-ready, actually solid. The question is not rhetorical. It's not Jupiter telling you to wait forever. It's Jupiter asking what still needs to be in place before Mars arrives in a few days and the actual forward motion starts. That's worth sitting with for a second. Not anxiously, just practically. Because what happens when Mars moves into Aries isn't vague. It's not, things will feel better. Mars in Aries is direct executing energy, the kind that takes what's confirmed and clear and actually does something physical with it, moves the thing, makes the call, sends what needs to be sent. And when that energy arrives, the people who spent this weekend quietly getting their foundation in order move differently than the people who spent it just waiting for the discomfort to pass. This weekend is not a pause in the sequence. It's part of the sequence. The tension tonight is the sharpest point. After that, it starts to release. And tomorrow, the day after the peak, has a specific quality that's worth understanding, because it's not just the day after the hard day. It's actually the most useful day of the whole weekend if you know what it's for. Tomorrow is a different day. Not dramatically different, but if you pay attention, you'll probably notice it. The same situation, slightly less weight on it. The sharp edge from tonight starts to soften. The question, do I have everything I need, feels less like pressure and more like something you can actually answer. And tomorrow afternoon, something specific happens that makes that shift concrete. Venus meets Ceres in an exact conjunction. Venus in Taurus and Ceres in the same place. And Taurus is about foundation, not speed, not ambition, not breakthrough. Stable ground, what actually supports things, what's real and solid underneath everything else. Ceres is the planet of tending, of making conditions right for something to grow, not forcing, not pushing, just getting the soil ready. Together, late tomorrow afternoon, they're pointing at exactly one type of action, not the big move, not the launch, the preparation, the quiet thing that needs to happen before Mars arrives and the real movement starts. And here's why that matters specifically for this weekend. Jupiter's question, do you really have everything you need, isn't answered by doing nothing. It's answered by doing the right kind of something. And Venus conjunct Ceres, tomorrow is the right kind of something. It's not force yourself into motion before you're ready. It's do the one concrete thing that makes the foundation more solid. That looks different for everyone. Maybe it's a conversation you've been putting off. Maybe it's a decision you've been circling but not landing on. Maybe it's something practical and small. An email, an arrangement, a plan that's been sitting in your head but hasn't become real yet. Tomorrow afternoon has a specific quality of support for exactly that kind of action. Quiet, deliberate, real. Not the same energy as what's coming in a few days when Mars arrives. That's going to be faster, more direct, more externally visible. Tomorrow is the internal version of that. The part you do before the pace picks up. There's also something worth saying about the morning. Before that afternoon conjunction lands, Sunday morning tends to have a cleaner quality than today did. Thoughts move a little more easily, the chest is a little less tight. That's not coincidence. The overnight release of tonight's peak means you wake up already past the sharpest point. The question isn't whether to move, it's just what to move toward first. Venus and Ceres tomorrow afternoon answer that quietly. And then, a few days after that, Mars arrives in its own sign, and everything you've been sitting with since the winter meets the kind of energy that actually does something with it. So let's put the whole thing together, because when you see the full sequence, the weekend looks different. A few days ago, the fog that had been sitting around work or money since the winter finally started to lift, not because something externally resolved, because the planetary configuration for the first time gave a clear confirmation signal. The direction became real. The sense that what you'd been building actually has weight. That landed. And then today, you woke up restless. That's not a coincidence. That's the exact mechanical consequence of what happened. Clarity arrived. Drive didn't. And the gap between those two things, seeing where you're going but not having the fuel to move, is what's been sitting in your body all day. Tonight, that gap hits its peak. Sun pushing forward, Jupiter asking if you're ready, the tension between those two pulling in opposite directions, reaching its sharpest point late tonight. After that, it starts to release. Not all at once, but the heaviest part of this weekend is tonight. By the time you wake up tomorrow, it's already passed. Tomorrow afternoon gives you the right kind of action for where things actually are. Not the big move, the preparation, the foundation, the quiet thing that makes the launch real when it comes. And then, in a few days, Mars moves into Aries. Here's what that actually means. Mars in Aries is Mars in its home sign, the place where it operates with zero interference. It's not subtle energy. It's not, you might feel a little more motivated. It's direct. It's executable. It takes what's confirmed and clear, and it moves it. The same direction you've been sitting with. The same thing you got confirmation on a couple of days ago, but now with actual fuel behind it. The sequence from the winter to right now has been fog, almost clear, first real confirmation, tension of the gap, preparation, and then movement. You're in the second to last part right now, the preparation stretch, the last quiet window before the pace changes. And here's the thing about that. People tend to undervalue this part. It doesn't feel productive because it doesn't look like progress. But the people who move well when Mars arrives are the ones who use this window, not to force motion before they were ready, but to answer Jupiter's question honestly. Do you have what you need? Is the foundation solid? Is there anything still sitting undone that would slow you down on the other side? If the answer is yes, there's something. Tomorrow afternoon is the time for it. Venus and Ceres in exact conjunction, both in a sign that supports practical, grounded action. Not loud, not dramatic, just solid. If the answer is no, you're actually ready. Then this weekend is just the waiting room. And that's fine too. Not every part of a sequence has a task attached to it. Sometimes the task is just getting through the peak without creating new problems. Tonight is that kind of task. Get through the tension. Don't make decisions from the middle of it. Let it pass. Either way. In a few days, the pace changes. What you've been waiting on since the winter is about to meet real forward motion. The window between now and then is short. So now you know what that feeling was. It wasn't a warning. It was just the gap between seeing where you're going and not being there yet. That gap is still there. The direction is real. The drive just hasn't shown up yet. And honestly, that's fine. That's just where this moment sits. In a few days, something shifts and the pace picks up. What you've been waiting on is about to meet actual movement. This weekend was just the quiet part right before that. Subscribe and stay close. It moves soon.